Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the GFI Racing League podcast. This is episode number 3, and it is your host, Nick Norris, driver of the number 35, bringing this show to you. And we had a pretty good week this week of racing. I had a okay week, did a little better in some areas, some not so much, still need improvement. But the races were overall pretty good races. Not a lot of cautions for most of them, at least 3, and overall pretty good week. So let's just go ahead and jump on into the Cup race and the details of that. That was at Darlington this week. It was a 75 lap race with only 3 cautions. That was a lot better for the Cup series. We've been seeing a few more cautions than that for some of the previous races we've been having. So it was good to see only 3. That's a lot of green flag racing, and that was really fun. Really enjoyed that. And overall, just a really fun race. Really well done by everybody. And Darlington's throwback weekend, so we'll highlight some of those paint schemes in a bit here too. Looking pretty cool out there. Gonna try and go through things a little bit quickly because we got a lot of interviews for y'all in this episode, so I hope you guys enjoy those. A lot of good information in them, and I had a lot of fun doing them and talking to those drivers. So we'll go ahead and start with the pole winner for the Cup race, and that was Preston O'Brien, the number 18 for Tag E Racing. Really good job setting a fast time, faster than everybody, obviously, and that was really cool to see him up there. I think that's his first pole in Cup of the season. Could be wrong there, but really good performance out of there to qualify on pole. Too bad he wasn't able to pull it out in the end. We'll get to that. And then in P2 was Kyle Purcell in the number 16, really fast in the Cup this week, and really fast in a lot of the other series this week, which we'll get onto in a little bit. And then the race results for this one was Christopher E. Green is our winner, the number 50 for Ajax Racing. Really good job. He pulled through to win this one at Darlington. Took a lot of work. This was a really good performance out of Christopher to come out and win, I believe, his second Cup race of the season. So he's pretty locked into the playoffs at this point. And Kyle Purcell finished in P2. And his brother Sean Purcell, or twin actually, I learned that this week, finished in the 3rd position, the number 74. Really good racing out of the Purcell brothers. They're fast every week, up front every week. And if they don't have any trouble, you'll usually see them finish up front or winning races. And our most improved position of this race was Clifton Chanel, the number 80 for We Racing. A really good performance in this one. Started P22, finished P9. That's up 13 positions. How did he do that? I don't know. He just held it together, survived, and got through it, I guess. And then a little bit on the lower end, our biggest fall of this race was Preston O'Brien, our pole sitter. He started in P1 and he fell to P20, a loss of 19 positions. And that is because he had an internet connection issue and dropped out of the race, actually, unintentionally, losing all his position and finishing in that spot. So too bad. Hope it's better next week and that he doesn't have any issues. Been a lot of weather in that area. Now we can go ahead and jump on into our team points. The leader this week is Ajax 1 Racing, again with 499 points. They are up 60 this week. Second is Velocity Motorsports, up 1 spot, taking it from Tag E Racing, and they have 385 points, up 65 this week. And in third, dropping 1 spot, is Tag E Racing, 383 points plus 42. That's the team I'm part of. We got into quite a bit of messes in this one and just didn't have the finishes we wanted. Didn't want to drop that spot. We're going to try and get it back. The points are really close, so hoping for a good one next week. Big mover in this one, moving up. Triple Bulb Incorporated up 2 positions, 261 total points. They've moved up into P6 from P8. Good job. And then the big drop was Tag. We dropped 1. I think we were the only team to drop 1, so that wasn't much fun. That'll move us into the driver points for the Cup Series. Leader is Mitchell Sunstorm. No change this week. Number 22, Ajax. He's got 237 points. He gained 31 in this race. Second is Kyle Purcell in the number 16. No change this week with 219 points. Up 36 in this race. And then that'll bring us to third, Christopher E. Green, the number 50, Ajax. He's up 1, 207 points, up 42 this week. So that's a really good race, and I believe we got the interview with that race winner coming up right now. And we're now with Christopher E. Green, the winner of the race. He drives the number 50 for Ajax 1. This is his second win in the Cup Series, giving him a pretty good lock on the playoffs. And my first question for you is, what gave you the upper hand specifically in this race?
Really, it was the first lap. As you know, the race I had pretty much controlled the whole race. The first lap, the 18 kind of got a little sideways, and Kyle Purcell he got in with him coming out of two there, and then I had to run up down the back stretch, and then going into three, I got the lead. And once you're in the lead, the car just runs amazing at this track. So just my goal was to keep the lead, to keep control, and put myself in a position at the end to not burn up my tires and make it. So
Well, it seems like you did everything right and a wonderful job of it. You raced really well, really clean, leading a lot of laps. Is this a track that has usually been well for you, or has it ever been a challenge to come here and race?
I've been racing for about 3 years now, and this is actually one of the hardest tracks. So I did a bunch of official races throughout the week, and kind of helped put myself into a position to drive, good for this league race, and I think it showed. It was a pretty good race, pretty good turnout. We had, just I think two cautions or a handful of cautions. So that was great. A lot of green flag runs. So
Yeah, I think that was my favorite part was the long green flag runs that we finally got in the Cup Series. And another question I have for you is, why is racing important to you? Why do you do this?
I've always had a need for speed and simulation racing. I'm a dad gamer, so my days of sitting behind a race car and all that stuff is long gone. If I wrecked or something like that, I wouldn't be able to do this. I'd probably get injured and take forever to heal up. So this is the next best thing, and I've been doing it for 3 years now, and love it. It's so much fun. So
Which win ever that you've got has meant the most to you?
really, it's actually the two wins I've gotten with the league here. I'm not Daytona, Darlington, and Phoenix. Those are two tracks that are really hard tracks. They're very technical tracks. The tire wear is a factor. And just to get those two wins, like those are tracks that I usually struggle at. So it was just great. Everybody wants to obviously win throwback weekend, and I was rocking the City Chevrolet from my youth with Days of Thunder and Cold Trickle, and that was an iconic movie for me. So it was nice. It was awesome.
That's really cool, and that scheme looked really good in Victory Lane. And one more question to close us out for you here. What's one thing other drivers could learn from you?
Really, I've raced with the motto: if you want to finish first, you have to first finish. So you have to put yourself in a position to be there at the end. You can't, race really hard at the beginning, because you may not be there if you get wrecked out at the end. So that's something that's super important, especially in this league. We're doing a little bit better, and getting some green flag runs and stuff like that. So I think that's starting to be everybody's mindset of hopefully green flag runs is important. So.
Oh yeah, it's definitely important, and it's the best way to race, in my opinion, for sure. And I'll definitely say it is a fact that if you get involved, you are not finishing well. I have lived through it several weeks now, so that's not been good on my part. But I'm trying to live by some new strategies, taking advice as I've talked to all these drivers, and that's some really good advice from you. I appreciate that, and also appreciate your time coming on here and talking to us. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon, busting off a win here again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and look forward to at least the playoffs. But we have a bunch of races before then, so I'm excited to continue.
Yep, and if you stay in it, there's no doubt you'll be in the playoffs. So good luck to you. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
So that was a really good interview. Really enjoyed that talking to Christopher, and I'm sure we'll probably be talking to him again this year. He's been doing really well in the Cup Series, and that'll move us on into the Xfinity race. This one was really fun. It was Homestead. I love Homestead. Great track. A lot of choices of where you can ride and drive, and um, take over and defend. So it's a really fun track. And we ran 65 laps here. We had only one caution. The Xfinity race showing out again. One caution. 5 lead changes counted in this one, and it is week 4 of this series. So let's go ahead and get into the stats here in a second. But yeah, really good race. This turned into a fuel mileage race, actually, kind of toward the end. So that was pretty interesting. Kyle really pulled through in that end, really got it done, and we'll talk to him about that in a bit. So I guess we can go ahead and move on into the stats for this race. The pole winner was Kyle Purcell, the number 16. Really good job setting a fast time there. That was his first pole of the week. And then he led 9 laps in this race. Not a lot of laps, but he led the ones that mattered, that's for sure. Ralph Gilbert at the number 26 led 51. And then qualifying, in P2 was Sean Purcell in the number 74. It was a Purcell front row. The twins set some good times and got themselves up there. Really cool to see that. They perform every week, like we've said in the past week. They're doing a great job here and performing. And the race results for this race is Kyle Purcell, the number 16, came through and won it off of fuel mileage, ran out of fuel at the line. We'll ask him about that in the interview that we have here coming up. And then in P2 was Mitchell Sunstorm, the number 22 for Ajax, a really good performance. I know that's a finish that he wanted, probably wanted the win, but still a really good performance for the week. And Anthony Alex in the number 54 finished P3 for Velocity Motorsports. That's a really good finish as well, good performance. That'll take us to the most improved position of the race, and that was Mitchell Sunstorm in the number 22 for Ajax. He started P24 and he finished P2. That's up 22 positions. How he did that, I got no idea. I would love to know what line he rode or what his strategy was, because that's a big come up in the race. And that'll take us to our biggest fall, which was Michael L. Nelson in the number 15 for Tag E Racing. Started P5, finished P25. That's down 20 positions. He was involved in a wreck early. There was a situation with somebody hitting pit road because of a black flag on lap 1. And got a little messy. I was a part of it too. It wasn't great. Yeah, just a little bit of a mess coming off a 4 that didn't get completely cleaned up on the straight, but it wasn't too bad. And the rest of the race ended up being really good with, I don't believe any more cautions came out after that. So that was good. And that'll take us into the team points for the Xfinity Series. And the leader is Ajax 1 Racing. Surprise, surprise. That is the same as the Cup Series. I believe the top 3 is again the same as the Cup Series for this week. And they've got 265 points, up 66 this week. Second is Velocity Motorsports, up 1 with 216 points, up 67 this week. And in third is Tag E Racing, dropping 1, just like Cup, 209 points, up 38 this week. Again, we had a really bad start in this race. I think four of our cars were damaged on lap 1. I think 2 were out, if I'm correct, and that did not leave us in a good position to finish with great points. We still had some drivers come through and do a good job, but we wish we could have done better, of course. And then for the driver points, the leader of driver points is Ralph Gilbert in the number 26 for Ajax. That's no change this week. He's got 135 points, up 31. And in second is Kyle Purcell in the number 16. No change this week, 123 points, up 41 this week. And then in third was Mitchell Sunstorm in the number 22 for Ajax with 117 points, up 35 this week. So really good stuff going on in the points right there. A lot of movers, a lot of comers and goers, as you can see on screen there. And it'll be interesting to keep up with this in the following weeks, see if the leader changes, see if Kyle drops or gains a spot there. It's going to be interesting keeping up with the Xfinity Series. You got a lot of people performing here. A few running into trouble that I know could finish better, like Nicholas Warboy, I believe, has been doing pretty good qualifying up front. Just haven't seen the great consistent finishes out of him. So I'm looking to hopefully see him in the front row finishing pretty soon. And that'll take us on into our driver interview with Kyle Purcell. All right, we're talking to Kyle Purcell again, the Xfinity winner this week. He drives the number 16. He's got 2 ARCA wins, 1 Cup win, and this is his first Xfinity win. It feels like it was just 2 weeks ago we were talking to you about how you've missed out on a win in this series, and we were talking about how you were going to do it. I think you said it would have to play into strategy again somewhat, and you definitely did that today. How about you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, going into the race, I knew we were just a little bit short of being able to one stop the whole race if it went green. So I was talking to my brother, and we were like, if we get an early yellow, we can probably pit and make it if we save a little bit. And well, I'm sure you want to talk about it already, but the penalty that my brother got on the race start, and then the caution on lap one into two worked out great
Yeah,
into my strategy.
I'm
So.
sure that's not how early you wanted to see the caution go, but it is how it fell. And a question I had about this strategy that you ran was, how were you so comfortable with this strategy? How did you know you'd have enough to finish?
I actually thought I'd be a little more comfortable than I was. About 15, so I ran the whole first fuel run. Pit, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'm good to go from here. About 10 laps into just going full bore, I'm like, oh, I need to save a lot all of a sudden. So, I'm clutching, I'm lifting early for turn three and everything, only running the bottom. One other person is close to me on the same strategy, and I knew he'd been saving the whole run, so he was catching up to me, the 22 car. So I was getting nervous. I was very uncomfortable the last 20 laps, but no, I knew we were pretty close, so I figured no matter what, if there's an early caution and I'm not leading, I'm pitting. And that's what happened.
Well, you indeed got it done with a wonderful strategy. I had to clap to that. And I gave you some help down the back straight away, getting you to victory lane. And we dived into
Yes.
some of your secrets of what makes you a good racer last week. So I've got some new questions or not last week, 2 weeks ago. So I've got some new questions for you this week. What is your favorite track? Pretty basic.
Chicago Street's kind of a cop out because that's technically my home track if Chicagoland doesn't count. I'm just up the road from Chicagoland between Joliet and Chicago. But the only track I've been to in person and one of my favorites in iRacing has to be Gateway. I love flat ovals. I like that the two corners are very different and there's just a lot of throttle control that goes into that track. So I think it really brings out the best in people that are good at managing driving on the edge. So that's a fun one for me.
Pretty important question. Everything that led up to this moment. Why did you start racing?
Um, I got back into NASCAR kind of just before COVID, and my brother was doing some iRacing, and he convinced me to give it a shot. So, I got a Logitech G29, and I started racing a bit, joined the league he was in at the time, and once I got really into NASCAR, big Colleague fan, AJ Allmendinger fan, I was like, all right, now that I'm interested in it and I kind of get what it's all about, I kind of like doing it. And I think that my love for NASCAR and iRacing have kind of fed off of each other, build up into doing it as much as I do now.
So, what was actually your first win, and how long did it take you to accomplish that?
My first win was actually at a track I don't think I'm good at. Um, it was ARCA. So, I ran USA International Street Stocks for a week or two. And then ARCA at Richmond was my first win. And it was kind of an awkward win because there was a girl in front of me leading and I was in second and she got kind of sideways in turn one and I didn't check up in time. So I like launched her back or the back of her car into the air and drove underneath her. Um and then 10 laps later I had my first win. So I was like, well, that's an awkward way to get a first win. But she did make the mistake that led to it, but current me would have been able to see it and avoid it. So it feels a little icky, but yeah, my first win was ARCA at Richmond, a car and track that I was not good at.
That's really funny, and that is a interesting place to win for the first time. That's a difficult
Mhm.
track, a short track. A lot can happen there. Interesting
Mhm.
what you did to get it done. Well, I'm basically out of questions now. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon. You've now got a win across all three of our oval racing series. That's got to feel pretty good. You're locked into each of the playoffs. I can't imagine what that feels like since I'm not there myself.
It's coming. No, it's a relief. I was worried a little bit about Xfinity because it felt like, there was a few people that were clearly better than me at most tracks. And even again, Homestead probably wasn't the fastest car in the long run, especially. But just planning ahead, like we talked about before. If this happens, we're gonna think about doing this. And, they wrecked on the front stretch, 3, 4 wide on lap two, and ended up playing into my favor. Pitting lap three got me just enough fuel. So yeah, gonna need more of those if I want to keep winning, I think, because the pace, especially in the Xfinity series, has been, I feel, really fast. So some of those guys like Strader, Warboy, those guys definitely are going to be winning races. And who knows? There's so many different types of tracks coming up we haven't tried yet with these cars. Uh, could be some surprise winners there too.
Yeah, it was interesting to see you finally get a win in a car that you've said is not your favorite. You've had some complaints about it and some of the tracks that it runs on. Looks like you probably enjoyed it today as it got you to victory lane. And since we don't know when we'll talk to you next, I got a question for you about the ARCA race that we had last Friday. You were so close to getting that win, nearly going 3 for 3
Uh,
in terms of winning in the ARCA series for the first 3 weeks that it's actually been active. How did you fall short, and what could you have done differently?
well, working lap traffic on fresher tires. There was a car on my outside entering three, so I'm like, all right, I got the bottom and the middle to me. There was another lap car with a lot of damage, middle, entering like upper middle, so I'm like, all right, I just got to commit to the bottom then. And as I'm going through the corner in the middle, the car kept coming down, and by the time I realized that there wasn't going to be a lane anymore, by the time I got there, it was too late. And I tried to check up, and there was nowhere to go. So I ended up running them over, and the 3 liters all got taken out. So I think my only chance at that point was to ignore my brother's advice. He told me, no, no, stay out, you'll be fine. And then everybody else that was on that pit for tires. So the 17 ended up capitalizing on my lack of pitting, and he was the fastest and best positioned of the remaining cars and was able to get around me on that last lap. So it just came down to tires and the damage that I had at that point. It's a poor pitting decision. It doesn't always go your way.
Yeah, that was pretty unfortunate the way that it ended. I'm sure we'll probably be talking to you really soon. We've got a lot more ARCA races to go, and we can see if you can hit more back-to-back wins in there, and maybe some other series you'll start hitting some back-to-back wins as well. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for doing this, and until we talk to you again.
Of course, thanks for having me on again.
Now we can talk a little bit about the GT3 series. Go quickly through this because I believe we've got an interview for this one as well. This was at Lime Rock Park this week, 35-minute race with 42 laps run and 5 lead changes. Five was a special number this week for lead changes, as you'll see in the ARCA race. And the qualifying for this race, pole winner was Cody Carson, the 94 for Ascend, and in P2 was Tyler Carson, number 34 for Ascend. So and Xfinity and GT3, we had brothers on the front row, just dominating the front row, setting some really fast times. That's pretty cool to see. And in race results, P1 finishing in first, our winner, Cody Carson, the number 94 for Ascend. He finally did it this week. He came up short the last week. And the week before, I believe, just had a little bit of trouble. But it looks like he finally figured it out and came through with the win. So I'm looking forward to that interview. And then P2, Clifton Chanel, the number 80 for We Racing, a really good performance. That's another really good week in GT3 for him, and that goes on to do pretty good in the points for him as well. And then in P3 was Dylan Hartman, number 90 for We Racing. So We Racing had a really good day today, having 2 cars finish up front there in the top 5 and the top 3. So that's really good. The most improved position of this race was Alex Johnson in the number 60. He started P12 and finished P4. That is up 8 positions. Really good performance there on this really tough sort of short course road circuit. It was interesting. I had a tough time because I got some damage on lap 1, but overall pretty fun course to run. And the biggest fall of this race was Tyler Carson in the number 34 for Ascend. He started P2 and finished P7. That's a drop of 5, which is tied with Anthony Alex in the number 54 for Velocity, who started P3 and finished P8, which is also a drop of 5. And that'll bring us into the point standings for this series. We'll start with the team points. The leader in team points is Ascend Motorsports with 1,155.3 points. That's a lot of points. They're doing a really good job in the GT3 series. Second is We Racing with 1,149.5 points. They're not too far behind. They can catch up. We'll see what happens next week. And then in third is Velocity Motorsports with 1,008 points. A little bit further behind from We Racing and Ascend. They've got a little catching up to do, see if they can maybe get a win or what they can do to move up. And then in driver points, we've got Tyler Carson as our leader, the number 34 for Ascend with 1,235 points. In second is Clifton Chanel with 1,183 points. He drives the 80 for Wii Racing. And then in third is Cody Carson in the number 94 for Ascend with 1,152 points. A close battle up there in the top three. We'll see how that starts to mix out in the next weeks. And that'll take us on to our interview with Cody. All right, we're now here with the winner of the GT3 race at Lime Rock Park, Cody Carson, the number 94 for Ascend. We got a couple questions for him today. Like, what was the biggest factor that led to your win today? You sat on the pole, which made it probably pretty easy to start, but I'm sure you had some challenges.
I think starting on pole here at Lime Rock was a little bit tricky because you start on the right side, the right line, so you're going to be on the inside of turn one, which is tricky. It was a little bit helpful to have my teammate on my left until the incident happened. But after that, I think it was just kind of like the biggest thing was, staying calm, knowing that mistakes were going to be made, and just, put yourself back in position, because I dropped from, I think, first to seventh after the old spinorama there. But it was just like I said, just make the recovery drive, get what you know get what we were going to get at that point. It was really frustrating to go from having three cars in the top four to none after the first three laps. After we both have our incident, and then Jesse drops out after running wide a couple times. But yeah, I think the biggest thing was just making sure we didn't lose any more positions than we did at turn one.
Well, you did a pretty terrific job for the day. I believe you lapped the field. How much practice did you have for this course, actually?
Well, Keith had asked what lap times were looking like, so I did probably 10-15 minutes on each different setup from minimum to maximum downforce. And then other than that, just kind of, I've had a ton of experience at this track with all the rookie series road cars, so I had a good sense of the track as it is, and was pretty comfortable here to begin with. So was able to translate that pretty quickly to the higher speed car, and have a good sense of where I could and could not take risks here. There's not a lot of overtaking opportunities. So once turn one happened, and I was set on the drive for the set on the path for a recovery drive, it was just pretty much um, putting myself in a good place, making sure we didn't, give up too much time to the cars behind, and um, make the car ahead really think about what he was going to do, and hopefully don't put himself in too big of a mistake, but give me at least a little bit of an opening to get an overlap. And had a couple instances of that. The first one was a pretty obvious one where Tyler and I got pretty close up to Alex Johnson coming into downhill, and I got the overlap coming out of uphill, and we pretty much both overtook him out of the apex coming into downhill, and that was kind of pretty much one of the only places you could get an overtake done if you had an overlap already.
You ran into some issues last week, couldn't get it done, couldn't get by your brother, right?
Yeah, last week was hairy because I had zero experience with Mosport to begin with, and then going throughout practice, I just had no sense of balance of the car. I was losing the rear end all the time, and I get to the qualifying session, I get through the end of it, and I go look at the setup, and I'm on minimum downforce at Mosport, which is a very up and down rear limited racetrack. So if you're on the minimum downforce setup there, you're going to struggle getting the power down and keeping up on the lap times. So with that one, it was just kind of making sure we stayed up to pace, at least on track. I know it was going to be tough. Turn two is really, really hard there. It was a uphill crest left-hander, pretty high speed. Everything there is really high speed except for Moss Corner there, but that was a really tough one to keep it on track. And I felt Cliff really breathing down my neck there, and a few times throughout the race. And fortunately, he made a couple mistakes of his own and let me kind of build back the gap up. And he really wasn't able to close it enough to make a move at the end of the race there.
What races are you looking forward to in the series to perform at as well and possibly get some wins?
Looking forward to the rest of the season. I think there's a couple tracks that should be a lot of fun to race. I think Watkins Glen should be a really good time. I think just kind of the rest of the season, looking at the point standings, Cliff and I are really tight. The team standings are really tight at the top. I think the team championship is within 6 points maybe, and then Tyler, Cliff, and I are all I think within 100 of each other. So it's anyone's game really. A mistake here and there, and things get shaken up in a hurry.
They could indeed. They could indeed. One last question, and then we'll get you out of here. What could other drivers learn from you?
I think for me, the biggest thing is making sure we're looking at the risk of every overtake we're trying to make. There's a lot of
True.
times that I think I want to make an overtake, but I'm just not. There's a lot of factors that come into play. The corner that's coming up. How close you're able to get. The driver you're trying to make the overtake on. You can't really trust every driver the same, but I think just kind of I think I do a really good job of taking a look at the risk level of each overtake and making the ones that I think are the best ones to make without putting either of us at too much risk.
That's something I'm going to listen to as well, because I feel like that could also just transfer over to the Oval Series. And I've been struggling a little bit, so that's some good advice that I'm definitely going to seep in to myself. Hope some others do as well, because that is a good thing to be conscious of. And thank you so much for your time today and doing this interview. Is there anything else you'd like to say before you get out of here?
Nah, Nick, I appreciate your time. Let's go fast inside.
Let's sure try. Now we'll go into the ARCA race. The ARCA race was pretty fun. It was interesting. It was a fun track. I think it was a good choice. It was between this and Phoenix, and I think one more choice. And Phoenix maybe would have had less cautions, but I think it was a fun race. It was a good challenge. I did pretty good in qualifying. Just didn't end up finishing well again. Ran into some trouble. Somewhat self-created in some of it. So that was too bad. But this was at South Boston Speedway, and I had a lot of fun. It was my first time running this track, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun short track with some fun racing. It was for the most part pretty clean where I was running, and we ran 106 laps here. Finished on a green-white checkered. That's why we ran a few extra laps and whatnot. This had 10 cautions and 5 lead changes again. C5, special number this week for lead changes. 5 in Xfinity, 5 in GT3, and 5 again in ARCA. Wonder what's going on. But yeah, pretty interesting there. And the qualifying for this race was Kyle Purcell, sat on the pole to number 16, setting his second pole of the week. Really good job. And in P2 was Dylan Hartman in the number 90, We Racing, another really fast time on this track. I tried to wait a bit for the track to cool down instead of fast time. Was trying to take the pole, but I ended up sitting P3 for this one. And the race results, Dylan Hartman finished P1. He is our winner, number 90 for We Racing. That's a really good performance. He dominated this race for the better half of it, leading a lot of laps and having a good battle between him and Kyle, which was pretty interesting. And Kyle ended up finishing P2, and his brother Sean finished in P3, the number 74. And his brother Sean started in P6, so making up a few positions to finish in the top 3. Good job from the Purcells, and a really good performance from Hartman on this tough little short track. And our most improved position of this race was William or Jay Samples, the number 27 for Misfit. He started P23 and finished P4. That's up 19 positions, getting through a lot of traffic, just putting the elbows up and riding through them corners and gaining a lot of spots to finish really well. Good job to Mr. Samples there in the 27. And then the biggest fall of this race was a tie between two drivers. Jordan E. Barnes and the number 66 for LA started P10 and finished P21. That's a drop of 11. John Fowler in the number 12 started P5 and finished P16. Another drop of 11. I'm sure it's not the days they wanted to have right there. And that'll take us into the ARCA point standings. For team points, the leader is Tag E-Racing, up 218 points, up 53 points this week. Really proud when I saw that. I didn't know that. I'm so glad we're in the lead of one of the team points. That's really cool. Proud of the team. We've been having, I guess, some good weeks in ARCA. I haven't had some of the best, but the team has definitely been coming through with some good finishes, especially Brian Troy, who we'll talk about in driver points in a second. He's been having some really good weeks in the ARCA series. And then in second is We Racing, up to tying us for first with 218 points. They are up 72 this week. a big jump. Really good performance out of We Racing, getting some really good finishes on that team in this race. And then in third, or I guess semi-second, is Misfit Racing, down to 212 points, up 44 this week. So the top 3 are really close, with the top 2 being tied. So that is going to be interesting how it all plays out next Friday. Can't wait to talk about it then. The big mover was We Racing, as they were up 2, and the big drop was Misfit, as they were down 2 for the team points. And that'll take us on into driver points. The leader is Kyle Purcell, no change this week. He drives the number 16 with 156 points, up 36. And then in second is Lucas Chapman, who drives the number 17. No change this week in his standing, with 123 points, up 31 this week. He's got a ways to go to get to Kyle. Just maybe needs a win or just some really good finishes. Capitalize on one of Kyle's bad days, possibly, if he has one. And then in third, moving up one spot, is Brian Troy in the number 4 for Tag E Racing, 111 points, up 29 this week. Again, he's been having some really good weeks in ARCA. Really proud of his performance, and he should be proud of this too. That gives him a really good chance going into the playoffs, which has a good ways to go till we get there, but still. And that is going to be the end of this show. I really hope y'all enjoyed this one. Sorry it was a little bit lengthy. I wanted to keep as much as I could of all those valuable interviews in there so y'all could enjoy them and learn from them and all of that. And y'all can catch us on Monday for the Cup race at Bristol, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, on the GFI Racing League YouTube channel. Hope y'all tune in and watch us. That's going to be a pretty good one, I hope. Pretty entertaining, I believe. So I hope y'all tune in. Take care and see you next week.